Hello, all of you geography peeps, ninth graders. Good to see you. I hope you had a great spring break. I had a great spring break, although it was, shall we say, a little different than I had expected. My family was going to go to the Lake of the Ozarks and stay in a condo and kind of quarantine ourselves, but decided probably we should just stay home. So, in spite of the fact that we're all quarantined together, me, my husband, our dogs, the cat, and Chapman and Cheney, we've managed to get out, go for hikes, enjoy each other. I'm getting caught up on the Avenger series, of which I've missed many. Loved Captain Marvel. Yeah, it was really good. So anyway, I'm going to attempt to jump back in where we left off before spring break. We are still in the continent of Africa, and to celebrate that, I want to introduce you to Petronella. She's going to stay here with us as a inspiration for our conversation today. Petronella is a little girl that we sponsor, and she lives in Zimbabwe. Technically, that is considered part of Southern Africa. However, according to the maps that we've been using, she is in Eastern Africa. So it doesn't matter. Same country. The United Nations designates different regions in Africa differently than the geographic or the landscape of the continent. And so she lives in Zimbabwe. It's one of the poorest countries in Africa. And I love her name, Petronella. I just think it's darling. And we got a new picture of her actually over the break, I guess, or I just opened it up, showing some of her school supplies and her backpack and her ballpoint pens and the different things that she's going to be using. So anyway, this is Petronella. She will be hanging out with us today. I also have a James Harden bobblehead. No other reason except I walked into Chapman's room and decided that he should hang out with us today. So he's going to be in your screen as well, just a little bit there. Let me position him so he is paying attention. All right, so put my glasses on. So what we're going to do today is we're going to jump into a continuing conversation about the continent of Africa. And the week before spring break, we were talking about Sudan and Rwanda and a lot of the instability in the eastern part of the continent, including Somalia. Today, we're going to start off with a discussion of Madagascar. Now, Madagascar, again, according to the map we've been using, the United Nations designates it as part of Eastern Africa. Your textbook actually designates it as Southern Africa. So, our beautiful, I know it says backwards on your screen, but you're going to need this for the lesson today. Here we go. So we're going to start out by talking a little bit about Madagascar, and we're going to segue into our discussion about South Africa. So on the map, again, that you'll see on the PowerPoint that I'm going to send you, I would encourage you to open up the PowerPoint and also open up my video. And I will be referencing the PowerPoint while I'm giving my lecture. I'm also going to create a Google Doc, probably for each lesson, that will ask you some questions related to the lesson, as well as those questions like, did you watch the video? Did you look at the PowerPoint? Did you read what you were supposed to read? Did you watch this video? Did you watch that video? With the yes or no box to click. Rather than having you respond to everything via email, it'll be in a Google Doc form that you can actually type on and submit through your Google Classroom. So I think that will be much easier and much more organized and help me to identify who has finished their assignments and who hasn't finished their assignments. I'm also planning on uploading your lessons and making them available to you at 8 a.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So you won't see anything until 8 a.m. And there'll be time limits on the lesson, meaning that I anticipate that you will participate in the lesson during that block of time that is designated. So for you, my ninth grade 9A class that usually meets Tuesdays and Thursdays from 8 to 9:30, yours will be available at 8. It will come live at 8, I should say. And I anticipate that you will complete your lesson somewhere between 8:30 and 10. That's your designated time slot. If there's a hardship in your family where you don't have access to a computer or a phone or something along those lines, you just need to let me know that. I'm willing to work with you, but I think it's probably a good idea to at least try to maintain a regular schedule for all of our sanity. For my second group, 9B, your time slot is, I have to look and see, 10:30 to 12. So yours will still come live at 8 o'clock. So if you want to do it earlier, you can. But most of the time cutoffs will coincide with the block that you are involved in. So first class is 8:30 to 10. Second class is 10:30 till 12. And then the way they've got it worked out is that you guys have an hour for lunch, 12 to 1, and then the third block class, so your Tuesday, Thursday, third period class would come live or be available from 1 to 2:30. So I have had my computer on all day and have checked my emails frequently. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I've got a stack about this tall, I won't show it to you, of papers that I'm trying to grade. I will continue to upload grades to RenWeb. So if you want to know specifically about something, one of you actually emailed me about your test. I probably already responded to you. So I'm working through those. And I think I'm going to wait to put them in RenWeb until I have every single one of them graded. So hopefully by the time you guys get this tomorrow, I'll be close to that. So okay, so with that all said, we're going to jump into our lesson. I did also want to make note, show this to you, in the spirit of Africa. I have cloaked myself in my leopard print blanket, again trying to inspire you to think Africa, Africa, okay? All right, so I'm going to be referencing my computer. I'm going to be looking at the PowerPoint and encouraging you to do the same thing as well. So we're going to start off with a conversation about the cute little critters known as the lemurs of Madagascar. Most of you guys are familiar with them from the movie Madagascar. They are unique to the island of Madagascar. When you look at that map, you can tell that Madagascar at some point in time drifted away from the continent of Africa. I don't know if that happened right after the flood, if it was a slow process, but much of the plant life, animal life, etc. in Madagascar is unique to Madagascar. It's like Australia. And so you can't find them anywhere else in the world, which makes me think it was a fairly abrupt separation. After Noah's Ark landed, after the waters resided, the animals went to their various places, and as the continents drifted apart, they kind of got isolated on those places. Now, you can find lemurs in other parts of the world if you go to zoos, for instance, but they are native to the island of Madagascar. So, this is actually a fact of the day. And so you'll notice that in your Google Documents, the Google Doc that I've uploaded to this particular lesson has a spot for fact of the day. And so I'm going to read through my information. I don't have a whole lot on lemurs. I want you to look at the lovely pictures of the lemurs. But in that Google document, you're actually going to pick 6 things that you want to grab onto for the fact of the day. So I'm going to read through the fact of the day. I got to pull it up on my computer here. Okay. The animals of Madagascar, the lemurs. In Latin, the word lemur means ghost or spirit. They are primates or monkeys, consisting of 100 or so existing species. So there's over 100 of them on the island. They are, again, like I said before, they are native to the island of Madagascar. Most existing lemurs are small. They have a pointed snout, large eyes, and a very long tail. They chiefly live in the trees and are active at night, which means they are nocturnal. They sleep during the day and they busy themselves during the evening. They do share resemblances with other primates. They range in weight from 1.1 ounce, which is called the mouse lemur, a little tiny thing, to approximately 20 pounds. So a wide variety of weight. Let's see here. Instead of claws, they actually have nails, which is similar to monkeys. And their nose always is wet, kind of like your dog's nose. In fact, I had a vet once tell me, I don't know if this is true, so if you've got any veterinarians out there, let me know. An indication that an animal, your pet, your dog is sick is if their noses are dry. A healthy animal, healthy dog will have a wet nose. I don't know if that's true. That's what I've heard. Most lemurs possess a laterally compressed, elongated nail called a toilet claw on the second toe. They use it for scratching and grooming and that sort of thing. In the lemur world, the females are the dominant animal. They're more dominant than the males. They run the show apparently. They eat a wide variety of fruits and leaves, and while some are eat only specific types of fruits and nuts, most of them will eat a wide variety. Two species of lemurs may coexist in the same forest, in the same area, because they eat different things, so they don't run out of food, which is really cool that God did that. They can live in the same area and not eat each other's food source to oblivion. So, many lemurs are threatened with extinction due to habitat loss and hunting. Although local traditions generally help protect lemurs and their forest, illegal logging, for instance, widespread poverty and political instability hinder and undermine conservation efforts on the island of Madagascar. Because of these threats, their numbers are declining. Let's see, the International Union for Conservation of Nature considers the lemurs to be the world's most endangered mammal, noting that as of 2013, 90% of all lemur species face extinction within 25 years. So 90% of the lemurs on the island of Madagascar, because of habitat loss, hunting, and other reasons, are expected to be extinct or put on the endangered list by 2000 or 25 years from 2013. And then finally, let's see what else I got here. Last little note that I have in my fact of the day is that they have a very small brain to body mass ratio, which reminds me a little bit of cats. Just pea-sized brains relative to the size of their body. So I guess that means they're not that smart. That's what I'm guessing that means. Okay, I'm going to click over to my PowerPoint. All right, there are a lot of lovely pictures of lemurs. I want you to look through all of them. They're so darn cute. And then as you're going through your PowerPoint, you're going to come to a slide that has a few definitions. And these definitions are particularly related to Madagascar. Again, we are containing Madagascar within the eastern region of Africa for our purposes, although your textbook includes it in the southern region. So we are using the United Nations designations. And so there's two definitions in your PowerPoint following the very cute pictures of the lemurs that you will see. And the first one is the baobab tree. I'm probably mispronouncing that. It's the national tree of Madagascar. 80% of the species of this particular tree are found on the island of Madagascar, but you can find them in, I believe I read, India, and then Africa, and then a couple of the islands on the coast of Africa. So they are the trees that have the huge trunks. They go up into the sky, and then they flatten at the top, and they branch off. I believe they were in The Lion King. I believe there was a scene of them in The Lion King as well. And those are considered the national tree of Madagascar. The next next definition that you will see, I just lost my spot. Ooh. Hold on a second, is the capital city of the country of Madagascar, and I'm totally going to butcher this pronunciation. I'm going to try. Antananarivo, I think. Antananarivo. It's Antananarivo. It is the capital city of Madagascar, and you will notice when you look at the pictures of the city that I have in the PowerPoint that it has a little bit of a European flavor to it. The French colonized Madagascar, and so French is spoken in Madagascar. The people of Madagascar actually look African more than they do islandy, but you see a little bit of both, and you see a few white people in the pictures. I can't remember if actually I don't think I included pictures of the people. There is a video that I'm going to have you watch, a travel video from Madagascar. We actually had a student last year, I believe it was, whose sister did a travel abroad program for college and lived in Madagascar for a semester or a whole year of college. It's a beautiful, beautiful island country, but it is very poor. It was ruled by socialists for about 20 years, and so has a little bit of a Cuba socialist, communist disruption that occurred over the last couple of decades. So they do currently have a president, a democratically elected legislature, I believe. They're making some strides, but they have a long way to go. So, but you'll notice that the architecture looks very French. And I believe Catholicism also has a root on the island. One of the other things I want you to notice that I forgot to mention when I was talking about the lemurs is that you'll notice in the PowerPoint that there are some pictures of some other animals. One of them is the fossa, and there's a clip from the movie Madagascar that you're going to watch when I send the PowerPoint link to you. And it's the scene where they have crashed on Madagascar, and they are for the first time going to see the party going on with the lemurs at night. And the lemurs are all preparing for the fossa to attack. The fossa looks, it's actually a relative of the mongoose, but it sort of looks like a cat or a an African lion or tiger, not tiger, I guess a female lion on a small scale, but it's in the mongoose family. So when you see the pictures, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But they're called the fossa, and again, you will see those in the clip from the movie. I have a couple of pictures of them here. The chameleon, the tomato frog, the Aya, I think they're also in the movie Madagascar, and a couple of other animals like an owl that's unique to them, a couple of other things. But anyway, enjoy the pictures. I wish that I was there to watch them with you and to explain them to you, but enjoy them as you're going through the PowerPoint. There are some additional pictures of the landscape of Madagascar. Of course, they've got lots of coastline, rainforest. Most of the island is made up of trees. It's beautiful, and then there are a couple of videos associated with that. So I want you to watch those, and I will give those in my instructions. And then we're going to jump down to South Africa. I've got to switch my PowerPoint here for just a second. So, in review, the countries of Eastern Africa that we talked about were Somalia. You guys watched Dr. Danger's trip to Somalia and the anarchy and craziness of that country. We briefly talked about the political chaos and problems in Sudan. The Janjaweed, which are the militia that create havoc there, and some of the religious conflict between the north and or the country of Sudan and South Sudan. The fact that you have Arab and Black African tensions in Sudan, and then we talked about Rwanda and the genocide that took place in Rwanda. I would be curious to know if any of you watched Hotel Rwanda. It's a movie that I would recommend. I required my own kids to watch it, but the nature of it is violent, and I think it's rated PG-13. There's a little bit of language, but I believe, my personal opinion is that it was done very respectfully. So if you have a chance to watch that, it's based on a true story. And then Madagascar. So those are the 4 countries that we talked about. Somalia, actually 5, I guess. Somalia, Sudan and South Sudan, Rwanda, and Madagascar. Yeah. And now we're going to kind of transition to the southern part of the continent. Again, your book designates those differently than the United Nations does. I want you to look at the map in the PowerPoint that will be after the discussion of Madagascar. And then I'm going to ask you to read in your textbook for our lesson today. I want you to read in chapter 24, which talks about Southern Africa. I want you to read section 3, and I'll have that specified in my notes. But I do want you to read that. I'm not requiring you to do a quiz or anything over it, But you will want to read it for your test down the line and down the road, and there will be something on the Google Doc that says chapter 24, section 3. I read it or I didn't read it. And you'll have to be honest and mark yes or no. And so that transitions us to the southern part of Africa. And we are going to start out with the discussion of the country of South Africa. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time in the southern part of the continent, but we are going to spend a little bit of time talking about the country of South Africa. Remember again that my friend here, Petronella, is from Zimbabwe, which the United Nations designates that as Eastern Africa. Your textbook, I believe, designates it as Southern Africa. It's a very poor part of the country. So in your reading in chapter 24, section 3, it will mention Zimbabwe, where Petronella is from. Okay, so I'm going to flip back over here. So South Africa, the country of South Africa, not to be confused with the area of land, which is the southern part of Africa. South Africa is actually a country. That's the name of the country. And it is the southernmost tip of the continent of Africa and has a really unique history. It was colonized by the British and other European countries, probably most notably the British. English is their primary language spoken there, and it has a very distinct accent. It's not the Queen's English. It's not Australian English. It's not New Zealand English. It has a very unique accent or flavor to it, and I can't, right off the top of my head, I can't think of anybody to point to, but I usually can recognize it if I hear it in somebody, if somebody's speaking it. But anyway, South Africa is unique because it was kind of the last stronghold of segregation, I'll call it that. The minority numbers in Africa and South Africa are white people, and for decades the white South Africans controlled the government, and they instituted a policy called apartheid, and essentially it was a separation of the races, and be it in schools or in public transportation, public accommodations, Black Africans and Indian Africans were not allowed to go to school together, eat in the same places, attend the same public events. Everything was segregated, and that was the law of the land. And similarly, that was the law of the land in many parts of the United States until the 1950s and 60s, when the Supreme Court ruled to change that. So South Africa just waited a lot longer than the rest of the civilized world to do what they should have done. And because of that, they became very isolated from the rest of the world. Economically, industrial, whether it be the Olympics or whatever, until the government was willing to change and get up to speed with the rest of the world. The civilized world just essentially cut them off. And finally, in the 1980s and the 1990s, I think apartheid ended in 1990 or 91. And I'm old enough to actually remember this and how disrespected they were in the world's eyes for what they did. Finally, they turned the corner and decided to change the law. And there was a man by the name of Nelson Mandela who had worked with the African Congress to end apartheid, and was considered a terrorist and an enemy of the state, and he was in prison for I believe over 20 years. It may have even been closer to 30 years. And ultimately he was finally released, and he rose to the highest position in the land of South Africa, and he was elected president in the 1990s of the country of South Africa. And sort of a hero, a folk hero in the world, to go from a prison cell to actually being elected president. And so because of their history, South Africa has really struggled to provide opportunities for all of their citizens. So economic inequality still exists pretty significantly in Africa. Violence and crime because of the poverty is significantly high. It is there are a lot of positive things that have happened, and they'll get there eventually. But unfortunately, because they drug their feet for so long, they still are struggling with some of those things that other civilized nations have significantly overcome. So, but I'm going to flip over to my notes again and see where I'm at. All right, so the very first part of the next section of your PowerPoint talks about this used to be a fact of the day, but I'm just going to make it information for you. The sports of South Africa, which I think are indicative of their British roots. And so if you were to go to the country of South Africa, sports are a very big deal there. And most of the sports that they play are sports that originated in Europe and in England. In particular, one of them is rugby. Now, we don't play rugby regularly here in the United States. A lot of colleges offer that for kids that live abroad. I know John Brown University has a stellar rugby program, and they play against lots of universities, University of Arkansas and others. But rugby is a huge deal in Africa. There is a movie called Invictus that stars Matt Damon and Morgan Freeman as Nelson Mandela. And it is the true story of Nelson Mandela's rise to become president and how he used sports to unite a country that was very separated by race. And so the rugby team hosted the World Cup rugby tournament in South Africa, and Morgan Freeman, who plays Nelson Mandela, tells Matt Damon, the captain of the rugby team, that he wanted South Africa to win the World Cup. And so it's the story of the South African World Cup team that reunited their country together in a common love of sports. So there's a number of pictures of South African rugby. Let me pull my information up here, read a little bit of it. Rugby has traditionally been the most popular sport in South Africa amongst white South Africans. Most of the national team historically has been white. They are called the Springboks team. That's what they're referred to. And they hosted the 1995 Rugby World Cup, the first one hosted in the continent of Africa. Rugby got its start in 1845 in Warwickshire, England. Let's see here. Lots of interesting things. It has its roots in a medieval sport, but they throw the football or the ball, which is an oblong shape, backwards. Another sport that you will find in Africa, South Africa in particular, is the English sport of cricket. We see that being played here by some of our Indian neighbors who are here working for Walmart and others that are from the country of India. I didn't mention this before, but if you recall when we were talking about Gandhi, Gandhi spent, I think, the first 20 years after college working in South Africa as a lawyer to defend the rights of the Indian South Africans that lived there. And they were considered a minority, they were in the minority, but they were legally in between the white South Africans and the black South Africans. So they suffered a lot of inequality as well. And so Gandhi actually worked there. It's where he got his start in his peaceful protest movement that ultimately liberated the people of India from the British Empire. Let's see here. Cricket, again, is very popular in England. It is traditionally the popular sport among those who are from Great Britain that relocated to South Africa. It is now followed by members of all races all around the world. The national, that doesn't matter. Anyway, the sport of cricket has a known history, with the oldest reference to it in recorded history in the 1500s in England, again, in southeast England. Cricket was introduced to North America via the English colonies in the 17th century, probably before it had even reached northern England. And then it just kind of spread around the world. Most Americans don't practice or don't play cricket. However, they did definitely pick up the sport of soccer, or which they refer to as football. So the third sport that you will see being played in the country of South Africa is football, also known in America as soccer, because we have our own football game, so we had to change the name. Football or soccer has historically been particularly popular amongst persons of African descent. So if you were to go to South Africa, the people that you will see playing soccer will be the black South Africans, mostly the poor, because all it requires is an open field and a round ball. And so you don't even have to have shoes. The poor of South Africa traditionally have played soccer, and of course the British have sent football or soccer all around the world, and it's a love of Americans today as well. Not as much loved as the American football, but very much loved. Let's see here. South Africa is one among only 4 countries which have played World Cups in all 3 major games: cricket, football, and rugby. England, New Zealand, and Australia are the other 3 such nations. All right, so I'm going to go back over to the PowerPoint, take a look at the pictures of these various games. They all have their own rules, all very interesting. I included a picture of some of the teams, the soccer teams. You'll notice that the picture of the soccer team from South Africa is, let's see here, there are about 21 players on the team, and only that I can see, only 2 of them are white South Africans. So it still remains as the most popular sport amongst black South Africans. Okay, and then as we go on down the PowerPoint, you'll see some more definitions. The flag that you see there is the flag of South Africa today. Nelson Mandela combined some of the historical flags of black South Africa with the flags that the British had used, and he combines those into a really cool flag. You'll see that in the PowerPoint. The first definition is Afrikaner. And I will read the definition. This is the name used to describe the Dutch, French, and German settlers and their descendants who moved to the colony in South Africa and made it their home. Historically, this word Afrikaner, which you will hear used often in South Africa, does not include the British. Apartheid, which I mentioned earlier, is the system of racial segregation in South Africa from 1948 to the 1990s, which favored the white minority government over other races in the country. Black Africans most significantly. This apartheid or segregation of the races included public places, social events, housing, so you could not have black Africans living in neighborhoods with white Africans. Also included employment opportunities. So if you were a black South African, there were certain jobs that you could not have. And so in South African society during apartheid, the people were separated based on 4 different appearances: white, colored, which I'm assuming means you had black and European descent, Indian from the country of India, and then black South Africans. And that's how people were segregated during that era. And then there's a picture of Nelson Mandela, a little bit of his history. It says he was a South African anti-apartheid leader that was in prison for 27 years because of his political activities against the government. He was released from prison, I think in 1990 or 91, and was elected president of South Africa in 1994. There's some pictures of him in the PowerPoint. And then there are just a list of facts about South Africa that I want you to be familiar with. The population is 54 million. It has many, many different ecosystems. There actually are a lot of animal reserves and hunting grounds and that sort of thing, tourist-related animal activity. You have grasslands, forests, beaches, mountains. South Africa is the world's leading producer of gold. They also export all kinds of diamonds. Kruger National Park is their most famous safari. It has all kinds of cats. That's what they're African cats. And you'll see some pictures of that in the PowerPoint. South Africa is Africa's largest communities of white, Indian, and multiracial ancestry. There are 11 official languages in South Africa, including Zulu, English, and Afrikaans, which goes back to the Dutch and German heritage. South Africa was originally colonized by the Dutch and the British. Let's see here. I already mentioned that. Okay, and then as you kind of go through the PowerPoint, there's lots of pictures. I want you to look at them all. Cape Town, South Africa is the largest city in South Africa, and it's at the very bottom of the country. Sits on sort of the peninsula. It's not the farthest that you can go on the continent, but it's pretty darn close. It's beautiful, huge tourist destination, lots of soccer, rugby. The Cape of Good Hope is that peninsula that I think it's, I need to look. Yeah, Bartholomew Dias of Portugal was the first person to round that. It's called the Cape of Storms. Where'd it go? Sorry. It's referred to as the Cape of Storms because as you come around that peninsula, there's just lots of converging currents. It's very, very dangerous for sailors, especially in old wooden ships 500, 600 years ago. So Bartholomew Dias was the first person to circumnavigate, I don't know if that's the right word, yeah, I think it is, circumnavigate the continent. So he went from the western part of the continent to the eastern part of the continent. And he was from Portugal. And that happened in 1488. There's a diagram that shows you, actually I'm gonna bring my thing down here. Okay. So there is a picture here that you'll see it on your PowerPoint that shows you where Cape Town is, the Cape of Good Hope, Cape Point, Cape Handcliffe, and I don't even know how to pronounce the other one. But this is I believe that this is the area that Bartholomew Dias rounded that was so difficult. This is the furthest southern tip of the continent as well. All right, I'm gonna put you back up here. If I can figure out how to do this and include a split screen without you having to do it manually, I will. And then there, throughout the rest of the PowerPoint, it shows you a variety of the landscapes of the area. Kruger National Park, a lot of the animal kingdom. You there have lions and other cats, hippos. It's a very popular destination for tourists. I think that is it. Okay, so with that said, I will include your instructions in Google Classroom. I will include a link to this video, a link to the PowerPoint, and instructions as to what I expect you to do for class, and then if there is any homework. I would recommend that you or your parents print off a copy of the PowerPoint, only those slides that have text on them, and use that as something to take notes with as you're watching this video. If you don't know how to print the PowerPoint and designate which slides that you want to print in the small, where you can print like 6 slides on one piece of paper, you don't have to print a whole piece of paper for one slide, let me know and I can walk you through that. But that's what I would recommend you do each time we have a PowerPoint, that you print off the slides that actually have text on them, notes, definitions, if it has a fact of the day on there. I wouldn't print all the pictures and everything. You're gonna run your parents out of ink, but you don't have to do that. You can just use a piece of paper and copy them down if you want to. I think it'd just be easier if you printed them off. So I think that's all. James Harden says adios. Petronella says adios. And I look forward to I started to say, I look forward to seeing you, but I look forward to getting your responses in Google Classroom. And in spite of the fact that this is a really bizarre way to teach, I'm thankful for technology. I'm thankful for communications, and I look forward to conversing with you in this format. It's better than nothing, so we'll take what we can. Love you guys, and I will see you next time. Bye.